Now we will discuss on differentiation of vectors with respect to scalars. So many laws that we have studied in physics are contain the terms which have derivative of some vector quantity with respect to scalar. For example, in Newton's law, the definition of force gives that it is the force is proportional to time rate of change of linear momentum. So also another example we can take in electromagnetic induction, induced EMF is proportional to time rate of change of magnetic flux. So in mechanics there are examples of velocity, acceleration, etc. So these differentiations are with respect to scalar, whose differentiation of vector with respect to scalar will give us a new vector. So in this article we will study the methods of differentiation of vectors which are taken with respect to a scalar quantity. Now when vector function is function of more than one scalar independent variable, then partial derivative is needed. In our second chapter also we have discussed that if in your function there are more than one independent variable, then we take a partial derivative. We can't take a total derivative or exact differential. So we have to take partial derivative of it. Therefore, in case of vector also, if your vector function is a function of more than two or more than one scalar independent variable, then partial derivative is needed. For example, we will consider a v bar as a vector, and this vector is undergoing the continuous change in its magnitude and direction with respect to time. So here the vector function is a function of scalar variable which is nothing but time. So v bar is our vector function and t is a scalar quantity. Now if I am saying that the variable t is changing from t to t plus delta t, and due to this change in t, since v bar is function of t, v bar also undergo the same change, and change in v will be from v to v or v bar to v bar plus delta v bar, where this delta v bar is a small increment in v due to increment in t. Increment in t is what? Delta t. Means if your t is increased by delta t, then v will be increased by delta v. Therefore, here we have taken this plus sign, that is increment in t and increment in v. So the delta v will be small increment in the v due to change in delta t as a delta t in t. Now the ratio which is taken as delta v upon delta t is nothing but the average rate of change of v with respect to t. Therefore, this term delta v bar upon delta t gives us the average rate of change of v with respect to t. Now, if I am taking the limit as delta t is tending to 0, then this ratio will also attain the limiting value, which is the rate of increase in v bar. Hence, I can say that according to definition of the derivative which we have already discussed in second chapter, I can say that if I am taking limit as delta t tends to 0 of this term, it will give me the derivative of v bar, that is dv bar upon dt equals to limit delta t tending to 0 of this ratio. So this is the definition of the derivative. I'll call this as 26. So this derivative is the ratio of vector to scalar, and hence this will also be a one new vector. So this is the differentiation of vector with respect to scalar. Now if I am expressing my V bar in terms of Cartesian coordinate components, then V bar is taken as Vx I cap plus Vy j cap plus Vz k cap. Since we have expressed our V in terms of Cartesian coordinate components. Now this, where this Vx, Vy and Vz are also function of time, and this I cap, j cap and k cap are unit vectors which are constant vectors. Therefore, if we took this derivative dv bar upon dt, since these all components Vx, Vy, Vz are a function of time, therefore we have to take derivative of each component with respect to time. So we will get dv bar upon dt as dvx upon dt. Since I cap is a unit vector which is constant, it won't change. Then dvy upon dt j cap plus dvz upon dt k cap. So this will be the differentiation of the V when it is expressed in terms of Cartesian coordinates. Now let's see some illustrated examples that you have already you are studying it from 11th standard. That first we will take example of velocity. Now you know velocity is rate of change of displacement with respect to time. So I can say velocity vector V bar as dr bar upon dt, where this r bar is a position vector which gives us the displacement of a physical quantity with respect to t. This is nothing but velocity, and from this velocity we can calculate acceleration, which is again a vector quantity which we have defined as rate of change of velocity with respect to time. And here velocity is again rate of change of displacement. So here if we put value of just v, we will get d square r bar upon dt square. Then also the angular velocity omega bar, this was our linear velocity. Now this was linear displacement. Now in case of angular velocity, it is the rate of change of angular displacement with respect to time, and angular displacement is given by theta. So we can say omega bar as a d theta bar upon dt. So this is definition of angular velocity. You have already studied all this. We are just taking examples so that you will get idea what is the derivative of vectors with respect to scalar. Now from this angular velocity we can also find angular acceleration. So angular acceleration is calculated as, it is defined as, it is given by alpha bar, and it will be now rate of change of angular displacement with respect to time, angular velocity with respect to time. And here again omega is d theta upon dt, so we'll get d square upon d square theta bar upon dt square. This is nothing but your angular acceleration. So these are few examples, and these derivatives can also be worked out in case of polar coordinate. These are taken in Cartesian coordinate. So this will also used in polar coordinate. Now if we took the next example, this is fourth. Let's take fifth as d by dt of addition of two vector. Means you are taking derivative of addition of two vector. Then this derivative is calculated as, first we will take derivative of first vector plus then add this derivative with the derivative of second vector. So this is nothing but the distributive property. So we can say that the differentiation is a distributive. Now next example is, if you are having d by dt of a bar dotted with b bar. Now we are going to take derivative of dot product. So this is differentiation of dot product which is taken as a normal UV rule, means product rule. In UV rule, the way in which we take derivative, we are going to use same derivative here. So same rule is here, just instead of product there will be the dot product. So instead of normal multiplication we will have dot on that place. So according to UV rule, if we took derivative of first, then it is dotted with the second quantity which is kept as a constant, and this is added with the derivative. Now we will keep first quantity constant and we will took the derivative of second, that is dB bar upon dt. So this is the way in which we can find the derivative of a dot product. Now this is also calculated for a cross product. So derivative of cross product is defined as d by dt of a bar cross b bar. Now here, since dot product is commutative, means a bar dot b bar will be equal to b bar dot a bar. So this order of this dot doesn't matter, means if you took first b bar and dotted with this quantity, it won't change because dot product is commutative. But in case of cross product, since cross product doesn't obey the commutative law, you have to keep order in the mind. If order is disturbed or order is changed, then the cross product should not be same, it will be different. So you have to keep order maintained, and that order is, we will take first derivative of first vector with t and then we will cross it with b, and this is added with first quantity. Now we will keep constant and take its cross product with derivative of the second vector. So here if you exchange the position of these two terms, then that will become negative, since we know that a bar cross b bar is equal to minus b bar cross a bar. These are not equal. If you have to write equal, then it is negative of each other, since order is not maintained. So the vector product does not obey commutative law. Therefore order of vectors in the product must be maintained. So you have to take this as it is. Here you can change the order, it won't matter. So above methods of differentiation is also applicable for the vector triple product, means a bar cross b bar cross c bar. For this vector triple product also you can apply this rule. Now next is the rotational quantities as a vector. In earlier stages we have discussed the vector analysis. We have already studied about the vector analysis. So in that, one of the property of vector was that vector obey commutative law of addition. The commutative law of addition is important condition for the vector, and we have already discussed this. So a finite rotation can be expressed vectorially as by using a straight line with arrow headed down parallel or along the axis of rotation. Means you have to denote if a vector rotation by diagram, you can show it as the upper headed arrow, and if this is the axis of rotation through which your vector is rotating. So in this case, the straight line with arrow headed down or parallel, or it is along the axis of rotation. This is the vectorial representation for a finite rotation of vector. The magnitude is represented by the length of this vector, and sense of rotation, that is direction of rotation, is given by right hand screw rule or right hand thumb rule, which we have already discussed. Right hand thumb rule. This we have already discussed, but again we will discuss it in short. Now if I am considering this vector which represent axis of rotation, then length of this vector will represent magnitude, and if I hold this axis of rotation in my right hand, now suppose this pen is my axis of rotation and I am holding it in my right hand, then the fingers which are curled around this axis of rotation, which is directed upward, means the sense of direction is upward, and this my fingers which I am making curl around this axis of rotation, this will represent the direction of rotation. So this is the direction of rotation, which is the direction, and here the thumb will give the sense of direction of vector. So this is nothing but the right hand thumb rule. This we have already discussed. So now we will discuss infinitesimal angular displacement as a vector quantity. Now to study this infinitesimal angular displacement as a vector quantity, we will consider a particle which has rotated through an infinitesimal angle which is given by delta theta from its initial position P to final position Q. Means if I am saying this is the axis of rotation which I am denoting by a vertical line with upper headed arrow, and let's say in this way your vector is rotating. So here let's say this is the center. Now a particle is rotated through an infinitesimal angle which is delta theta, and it is for the displacement from P to point Q. Suppose I am considering my point P here and Q as here. So this is point P and this is Q, and the displacement of a particle which is now angular displacement. So it is given by an infinitesimal angle and it is nothing but delta theta. Then this delta theta is represented along the axis of rotation as we are showing. So if we consider R as a position vector of point Q, let's say this is our origin and the R represent the position vector of point Q, then if we join point O and P, we will get that position vector. So let's join this point P and Q. So this is nothing but the vector which is R bar. And second, the R plus delta R is for the position vector of point Q, which is obtained by joining point O and Q from origin. So this vector is known as the R bar plus delta R bar. So this is position vector of point P, and due to this the displacement from point P to Q is given by delta R. So this will be now our delta R bar, since this is position vector for point P and for point Q we have given it by R plus delta R. Therefore the small displacement will be delta R bar of the particle, and this delta R bar of a particle is vectorially or mathematically given by delta R equals to delta theta crossed with R bar. As we have already discussed in detail about the cross product. So cross product of this delta theta with R will give us the infinitesimal displacement of point P from point P to point Q, and let me call this as equation number 28. And now again if we consider two successive infinite angular displacement, and these are given by delta theta 1 and delta theta 2, means in this case we have considered only one displacement. Now we will consider two infinitesimal displacement. So let's draw the figure for this. So these are two infinitesimal displacement that I have considered as delta theta 1 and delta theta 2. Now the corresponding position vectors for these points are given by, first we will denote it as, let's say this is our origin. So this vector is taken as, let's say, r1 bar, and this position vector from point to origin O is taken as r2 bar, and third position vector we will take it as r3 bar. So these are our three positions vector, and the corresponding displacements will be, now this will be delta r1 and this displacement is taken as delta r2. So these are the corresponding infinitesimal displacement, and corresponding angular displacements are delta theta 1 and delta theta 2. Now according to this equation, for two displacement, that is here we have taken delta r for point P to point Q. Now this delta r1 according to this equation will be delta r1 bar equals to, now this will be delta theta 1 bar crossed with r1 bar, and second will be for delta r2 bar. So this will be what now, according to this definition, this will be delta theta 2 bar crossed with r2 bar. Let me call this as equation 29. I will write all these three equations on next page and we'll go for further discussion. And also from this diagram, this vector r2 will be addition of r1 plus delta r1. Therefore, what we can write according to diagram, vector r2 bar will be r1 bar plus delta r1 bar. Now here, since you know that our delta r1 bar is this quantity, so if we substitute this here, this is our r2, and if we substitute this r2 in delta r2, we will get delta r2 as delta theta 2 bar. It is crossed with, what is now r2? Let's substitute it as r1 cross delta r1 bar. Now a final vector r3 after two successive displacement delta theta 1 and delta theta 2 is, according to diagram, now your r3 will be addition of r2 bar and delta r2. So from diagram, r3 is represented as, it will be equal to r2 bar plus delta r2 bar according to diagram. Now again we will use the definition of r2 bar. So this is our r2 bar. Let's substitute value of r2 bar over here. We will get r1 bar and remaining delta r2 as it is. So plus delta r2 bar. Now here what we will do, we will substitute value of this delta r1 and delta r2. So we will put these both values in this equation. What we will get, r1 bar as it is. Let's put delta r1 as delta theta 1 bar cross with r1 bar plus, now what is our delta r2? Delta r2 is delta theta 2 bar crossed with r1 bar crossed with delta r1 bar. Now here if you observe the term, which is this term, so if we simplify this, we will get r1 bar plus delta theta 1 crossed with r1 bar plus, let's solve this bracket, we will get delta theta 2 bar crossed with r1 bar. Here there is addition sign. Here there is addition sign. By mistake we have taken it as a cross because this is the value of r2 bar we are going to substitute. So here this r2 is containing addition. By mistake we taken it as a cross. So let's make this correction. So here there is plus sign. So here also that correction will be here plus. Now if you solve this bracket, we will get two terms containing addition. So here there will be addition of now delta theta 2 bar crossed with delta r1 bar. And now we will ignore this term since it is product of two very small terms. So this is nearly equal to 0. Therefore, we are going to ignore this term, and after this we will take this r1 bar as common, so that we will get r1 bar plus, here if we took r1 bar common, we will get delta theta 1 cross with delta theta 2 bar and r1 bar as common. So this is, let me call this as equation number 30. Now here, if we reverse the sense of infinite decimal displacement, means what we will do, if we reverse this direction of rotation, this is was our first, so if we reverse it, then the r3 bar is taken as, instead of this r3 bar, there will be change due to the reverse sense of direction. This r3 bar will become as r1 bar plus this infinite decimal displacements are reverse, means first we will write delta r2 and then there is a displacement delta r1, since direction of rotation is reverse. So the in reverse sense, first displacement will occur is delta r2 and second it will be delta r1. Now again we will substitute delta r2 and delta r1. So delta r2 is this and this is our delta r1. Let's put it r1 bar as it is. Delta r2 is delta theta 2 crossed with r1 plus delta r1. So r1 bar plus delta r1 bar plus, what is our delta r1? This is delta r1, which is delta theta 1 crossed with r1. Now again we will solve this bracket, we will get addition of two terms, which is r1 bar as it is plus this crossed with r1 bar, that is delta theta 2 bar crossed with r1 bar plus now delta theta 2 crossed with delta r1 bar and this term as it is. Again, if you observe this middle term, this is product of two very small quantities. We can take it as 0 or we can neglect this cross product. And after this, if you took this r1 bar common, here you will get r1 bar plus delta theta 2 bar crossed with delta theta 1 and this is taken common. So here there will be a addition. Here also by mistake we have taken cross. Since we are taking just r1 crossed common, this addition sign by mistake I written is crossed. I am sorry for these mistakes. So here there will be a addition of these two quantity and crossed with r1 is taken as common from these two terms. So here crossed with r1 bar as a common. So we neglect this term and now this r3 is called as equation 31. So from equation number 30 and 31 I can write as this LHS of both equations are equal. So we can write r1 bar is plus delta theta 1 plus delta theta 2 crossed with r1 bar. This is equal to r1 bar plus delta theta 2 crossed with plus delta theta 1 bar crossed with r1 bar. So from this I can say that these both terms are equal by comparison. So we can write delta theta 1 plus delta theta 2 will be equal to delta theta 2 plus delta theta 1. So here I can say that the infinite decimal angular displacement obey commutative law of addition, because this is the law of commutative law for addition. So these angular displacement vectors also obey the commutative law of addition. Hence, this angular displacement can be represented by vector quantity. Since the commutative law of addition is obeyed by all types of vector and these quantities are also obeying commutative law of addition, therefore I can say that these angular displacements are the vector quantity. Therefore we can represent this angular displacement as a vector, means delta theta is taken as delta theta bar. Now we will have two conclusions from this. So first conclusion is taken as, if our delta theta is now vector, then angular velocity is also a vector quantity, because definition of angular velocity is omega bar equals to limit delta t tends to 0 of delta theta bar upon delta t bar, and this is nothing but d theta upon dt. Since theta is vector, this angular velocity is also a vector quantity. And similar for angular acceleration, which is given by alpha bar, which is nothing but limiting value of delta omega upon delta t as t tends to 0. So this is the definition of the angular acceleration, which is d omega bar upon dt. Since your displacement is a vector quantity, both velocity and accelerations are also a vector quantity. As like our linear displacement, angular displacement is also a vector quantity, since it obeys the commutative law of vector addition. So we can say that angular displacement is also a vector quantity.